The boy stood behind the heavy black curtains of the Ireland's Got Talent stage, clutching the neck of a scratched old guitar as though it were the last piece of home he had carried across the ocean. His slippers, the kind only used in the house, were patched with tape, and every few seconds he rubbed his thumbs nervously over the chipped wood of the guitar. He had never seen a place this big, never stood in such bright lights, never been surrounded by people who looked like they belonged here. In that moment, he felt like a tiny speck in a world too large, too shiny, too loud for a boy from Cebu. The backstage staff moved with confidence, headsets on, clipboards in hand, calling out cues and names. Every time someone walked past him, he shrank back a little. His voice trembled when he answered the woman holding a tablet, "Why yes pa, I'm ready." But his voice didn't sound ready at all. He peeked around the curtain. The audience seats looked like an endless sea, rows and rows of people, all facing one direction, all waiting to judge him before he even sang a note. The judges' table glowed beneath bright spotlights, their names sparkling on gold plaques. He had memorized those names from videos on YouTube at the tiny computer shop back home. He used to stand outside the shop window because he didn't have money for the fee, pressing his face against the glass to hear 5-second pieces of other singers' performances before the buffering symbol appeared. And now, somehow, impossibly, he was here. He swallowed hard, trying not to cry. His mother's voice echoed in his head like a gentle hand on his shoulder. She used to sing while washing clothes for other families. She'd hum melodies to distract him from the rumbling in his stomach when they didn't have enough rice. Many nights, she wiped tears away with the back of her hand when she thought he was asleep. "Anak, sing from your heart. That's something rich people can never buy." He remembered the day she sold her only good necklace, a tiny cross pendant, so she could buy him a ticket to this audition. Her hands trembled when she placed the ticket in his palm. She didn't speak English fluently, but she whispered something he would remember forever. "This is your chance. Not just for you, for us." Backstage, one of the crew members knelt in front of him and adjusted the microphone on his shirt. The boy tried to smile, but it looked more like a wince. Sweat trickled down his temple. His breathing grew fast and shallow. He was scared that his voice would crack, that he would forget the lyrics, that the judges would laugh or that someone in the audience might whisper, "He doesn't look like he belongs here." A tall man with a headset leaned in. "You're next." Those two words punched the air out of his lungs. His knees weakened under him. His guitar strap slipped from his shoulder and he scrambled to catch it, bowing his head in embarrassment as two crew members instinctively moved to help. He shook his head gently, he wanted to handle his own things. Poor boys learn early how to carry their own weight. He took a step toward the stage entrance. Then he stopped. His mother's voice filled his heart again. "Sing from your heart, Anak." He closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and walked into the blinding lights. The lights were blinding, white and cold like a spotlight interrogating him. When the boy stepped onto the stage, every sound backstage suddenly faded. Only the echo of his footsteps remained. The stage floor felt slippery beneath his thin rubber slippers, and for a second, he wondered if everyone could hear how hard his heart was pounding. The judges sat in a straight line, light reflecting off their polished table. They looked powerful, confident, exactly the kind of people who could change someone's life in one moment or break their spirit in the next. He stood there frozen, fingers stiff around the guitar. The microphone waited for his voice, but he couldn't speak. One of the judges smiled gently, trying to ease him. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Her tone was kind, but her eyes studied him carefully. He wet his lips and tried to steady his voice. I'm Miguel. From Cebu, Philippines. A soft murmur spread through the audience. Some people leaned forward, curious. Others exchanged looks, surprised that someone so young, so small, had traveled so far. Another judge, known for being strict, rested her chin on her hand and asked, "And what will you be performing for us today?" Her voice sounded neutral, professional, but her raised eyebrow suggested she wasn't expecting much. Miguel swallowed. Hotel California, puh. The crowd chuckled at the puh. The judges smiled politely. He could tell from their expressions, they were expecting just another nervous kid with big dreams and no real talent. His hands shook as he lifted the guitar strap and positioned the worn instrument against his chest. When he touched the strings, he felt the familiar grooves, carved from years of practicing on the same 3 chords. The guitar wasn't just wood and strings, it was the only witness to the nights he spent practicing under a flickering bulb in the alley outside their small room, where neighbors complained but later applauded him quietly. He took one shaky breath. Then another. First chord. Clear, steady, surprisingly confident. The judge who had been leaning forward froze mid-motion. The audience fell silent, not because of how loud he was, but because of how fragile and pure his sound felt, like a secret being shared only with those who dared to listen. He sang the first line, and a ripple of awe spread through the room. His voice was raw emotion, warm yet cracked, powerful yet aching. You could hear every hardship in the way he hit the high notes, every sleepless night in the way he stretched the vowels. The first judge blinked rapidly, as if her brain needed time to catch up with what her ears were telling her. Halfway through the song, Miguel closed his eyes, letting the music carry him. In that moment, he wasn't on a huge stage. He was standing barefoot on the rooftop back in Cebu, singing to the sky with his mother washing clothes beside him. The pain and hope he carried inside him collided into one perfect sound. Judge number 2 stood up slowly, no theatrics, just genuine astonishment. She pressed a hand against her chest, breathing sharply. Another judge whispered, barely audible, "How is that voice coming from that boy?" Miguel opened his eyes, and the auditorium blurred. The lights turned into stars. The audience, once skeptical, was now mesmerized, some with hands over their mouths, others wiping unexpected tears. For the first time in his life, people were not looking at him with pity. They were looking at him with admiration. He sang the chorus with everything he had. His voice cracked, not from lack of skill, but from too much emotion, and that crack made everyone fall silent. It wasn't a performance anymore. It was a confession. When he reached the final line, he let the last note linger. And in the space between silence and sound, time stood still. When the final chord faded, no one clapped. No one moved. They just stared, breathless, overwhelmed. And then, slowly, the applause began, soft, unsure. Then it grew louder, like thunder rolling over an open sea. Miguel lowered his head, tears dripping on the guitar. He didn't dare look at the judges. He didn't know that one of them was already reaching toward the golden buzzer. The final note hung in the air like a prayer. Miguel's voice trembled as it faded into silence, as if his entire soul had been poured out and now there was nothing left inside him. He didn't dare open his eyes. For a moment, the stage felt too big, too bright, too quiet. In the darkness behind his eyelids, he saw memories, sleeping on cardboard by the sidewalk during power cuts, singing outside cafes hoping someone would throw spare coins into his open guitar case, his mother whispering that poverty was only temporary if he kept his heart strong. Slowly, he lowered the guitar from his chest. His hands were shaking. For the first time since stepping on stage, he was aware of how small he felt in this massive world. The silence stretched, longer and longer, and his breath caught in his throat. Had he done something wrong? Had his voice cracked too much? He finally opened his eyes. The judge on the far left had tears streaming freely down her cheeks. She wasn't wiping them, she simply let them fall. The stern judge, the one he feared the most, was standing and clapping slowly, like she had just witnessed something sacred. The third judge, normally composed and elegant, had her hand over her mouth, trembling. The fourth judge stared straight at him with wide eyes, emotion raw and unfiltered. "Miguel," the first judge breathed out, voice cracking. She couldn't continue. The audience rose to their feet in a massive wave, first a few people, then entire sections, until the whole auditorium stood applauding. It wasn't polite clapping, it was loud, uncontrollable, overflowing applause. Strangers were wiping tears, cheering his name. A man shouted, "That boy is a star." Someone else yelled, "Send him to the finals." But Miguel didn't hear any of it clearly. All he heard was his heartbeat pounding like a drum inside his chest. He tried to speak into the microphone. Thank you," but his voice broke, and he bowed his head in shame, thinking he had failed. Then it happened. A hand slammed down with force. The golden buzzer. The button glowed, and in an instant, golden confetti exploded from the ceiling. It rained down like sparkling sunlight, swirling around him as though heaven itself was celebrating. The audience screamed. The judges stood, cheering, pointing at him as if he were a miracle. Miguel's eyes widened in disbelief. His breath hitched. He looked at the judge who pressed the button, a woman with soft eyes now overflowing with tears. She rose from her seat and walked toward him. "You don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "You didn't just sing. You told a story. You shared your heart with us. And this," she gestured at the falling confetti, "this is only the beginning of your life changing." Miguel dropped to his knees. He couldn't help it. His guitar slipped from his hands and clattered onto the stage. The weight of every sacrifice, every hunger-filled night, every time he was told he wasn't enough, every moment he doubted his dreams, crashed into him all at once. The judge knelt down and pulled him into a hug. He clung to her like a child clings to safety. "I wanted to make my mama proud," he whispered through tears. "She already is," the judge replied softly. The confetti kept falling, glittering like tiny stars around them. The audience chanted his name, "Miguel, Miguel, Miguel," like a song. Somewhere backstage, a camera zoomed in on his tear-streaked face, capturing the exact moment a poor boy from Cebu realized his life would never be the same again. He looked up toward the lights, toward the ceiling where the confetti fell from, and whispered one silent message only his mother would understand. "Mama, we made it."